Hey everybody, welcome to Vidovic Arts. I'm Josh, and today I'm working on an M4 Sherman. Now, the reason I'm working on this model in particular at this time of the year is because it is V-Day, which is Victory Day over World War II, and I feel like not a lot of people really realize that May, has that kind of significant date. No one really celebrates it, so I thought I may as well bring up something to do with it and try and, bring back some memory to, the fallen of the past. It sounds a bit silly saying it because I'm just a miniature maker, but I feel like anyone who really respects history and stuff, even if you're making miniatures, it's still it's a little nod to history. So if you enjoy historical models, this one's for you, and let's get straight into it. So unlike other model tanks that I've worked on, this one is a real-world tank. So yeah, an M4 Sherman was the stock standard kind of tank for the Allies for a very long time, and there's quite a lot of iterations of it, but the one that I've gone for here is kind of a hodgepodge of multiple different M4 Shermans. So you can see on the left the references that I was chopping and changing between, and only once I'd actually made the model I realized how many different versions of Shermans there actually are. And I didn't even notice it while I was making this, because when I was flipping through the pictures I was only looking at one point at a time. But yeah, there's just so many different variants of these, of just the hulls themselves. So I'm not really sure which Sherman this particular tank is based on. We'll just go with it's kind of all Shermans. So hopefully you guys, don't get too kept up on that little fact. But if you enjoy the tank, I think you'll like the end look of it, because I certainly do. Now, working through this model, it's just like any other model. I work from basically nothing. I start with cubes, and they're called primitive objects. So you've got cubes, cylinders, and spheres, and you can, make things starting from that. And then, you extrude and add more edges and all that kind of stuff that you can deform the models around. Now, this model in particular is pretty simple, honestly. Tanks are very fun to make because they're basically just boxes. When you get to add more things to it, then it looks more like a tank, but you could literally have just a box with tracks, and you would have a tank of some sort. And I think that's why it's so fun to make these, because it's really, really quick, and yeah, I just enjoy them. Now, this model in total took about 3 hours to make from start to end, and you can check the little time on the bottom right hand corner to verify that. I pretty much made the whole thing in 3 hours, about 3.5 hours. I was really happy with it, and then I got to printing. Now, when I make these tanks, specifically with this tank, I had a bit of trouble because I like to make my tanks printer friendly, and what that means is that the print works without supports. And with this specific design, I just couldn't do it, and I didn't realize it until I actually started printing. Now you can see the overhanging edges on the side of the tank there, basically the track armor above. I couldn't do anything about that. I could have added support in there if this was my own tank, and it would have worked, but I wanted to match the Sherman as much as possible. So printing this, you will 100% need supports, for the very least at that point on the tank. But in all honesty, when I realized that I couldn't get around not having supports, I kind of started to design it to match the actual model, as opposed to, try and make it so it can print without any supports. Like these tracks here, for example, you can see that I've got that edge going like an inverted pyramid, so when it prints outwards instead of just hovering over the edge, or nothing in total. It's really hard to explain without showing you exactly how a printer works, but you can print to a certain degree from, if you picture a pyramid upside down, if that pyramid remains upside down and there's enough support on the base, you can actually print quite far out for your angles. But as soon as it becomes flat, I really hope I'm explaining this properly. you know, you can't print there anymore. And especially if it's overhanging and all that kind of stuff, you just get a lot of drooping filament and a whole bunch of failures. So yeah, going on from there, details-wise, the tank I found, you know, it's got some weird bits. It feels like it's a very round tank, but then when I got into some more edging, I realized that there's only certain bits on it that are round. Other versions of the Sherman are definitely more round than this one, but I went for the more boxed edge look. Now the turret is 100% round, but we'll get to that when we get to that. But yeah, I tried to keep that smooth edge, especially around the axle points, because I've only ever seen the points where the tracks are actually. I think that's where the engine is. I think the engine is probably at the back, but that's where the axles are that pull the tracks forward. And they've got this little curve inlay, and it's a really nice look, but the rest of it's so square. It was very difficult to work out. Now, like I said before, the turret is very, very round. And I started modeling this, and I just couldn't get that shape properly done without sculpting it. So I tried sculpting it in Maya, and in all honesty, the sculpting in Maya is absolute trash. So I took it into ZBrush and really, really quickly got the shapes that I wanted to get into the turret. And then I took it back into Maya, and I was really happy with the results. And as you can see, the difference was just so minute, but it's such a big deal when you're working with something and it just doesn't look right, and you just want to get it right. Yeah, that's all it took, was just to get that nice, proper shapes in. And yeah, the turret looks really cool. I'm really happy with the results. And yeah, I think I'd like to add some aerials, but they will have to come in post. I still haven't added it, even though I've printed it already. But aerials, I think you can use the filament themselves, and you just clip off a tiny little piece, and you've got this perfect length, perfect width and everything for little aerials. So that's just a little note to take with you if you are deciding to put aerials on your vehicles. You can just use filament, unprinted. This is the end result of the turret, pretty much. You can see that I have made it so it will work with any other tank that I've already printed. It's a really cool little feature that I'm trying to get on all my little tanks. So if you wanted to take the Sherman hull and slap another turret on there, you're more than welcome to, and vice versa. You can use the tracks, you can use other tracks. This is just all the tanks that I have. They're all working with each other so far. So yeah, let's have a look at how this thing was painted up. So I went with a matte undercoat of black, and I've actually added in a specific paint over the top of it. It is called, 1 second, I will find the paint. It is called Typhus Corrosion. Now this paint is kind of cool. It's got these tiny microscopic little balls of kind of like sand. So when you paint a model, it'll have like a detail that's over the top of it, and it looks like rust, or like a metal of some sort. Now I did this and I let it dry overnight, and then I've come back and I've just gone straight over the top of it with a green that looks as close to the olive green that the Sherman tanks have. Now I might not be exact with the color. It is actually a Warhammer paint. The paint is called... No, it's not called that. It's called Lauren Forest, I'm pretty sure. I'm looking through my paints at the moment. It's called Lauren Forest, and then I highlight it with an Elysian green. Now, if you don't use these paints, don't even worry about what I'm saying. You don't really need to focus on the name of the paint. If you have a green that looks kind of like an olive green or an actual olive green, more than welcome to use that. You don't have to even base it on real tanks at all. You could paint this thing blue if you wanted to, because it is your model. You'll be able to do whatever you want with it. So yeah, the highlights, I always like to find that higher tone and highlight any kind of corners, and and kind of I try to get like a little bit of a dry brush, airbrush feel in the center, and I kind of dabble and stipple it and work around as much as I can, just to bring up little edges. And even from that Typhus Corrosion, there are little balls all over this thing, and just the slight, dust of the brush will pick it up, and it looks really good, and it kind of takes away from the lines that are in the print itself. Now that's one of the reasons why I use that Typhus Corrosion, and it's the first time I've used it on such a big model, and I think it worked really well. I'm actually quite happy with the results. But you can see in a minute what the actual paint looks like over the top of what you're supposed to use it on, like metals and stuff like that. So I painted the tracks with the bolt gun metal. I'm just going to call it that forever, so you don't have to correct me on that one. It's just bolt gun metal forever. Now I painted over the top of it with the Typhus Corrosion to add, this mud kind of look, and I'm actually really happy with it, because Typhus Corrosion comes out as a matte. So once you've painted it, it doesn't come out gloss at all. It looks very nice. Now one of the other things I wanted to, I was kind of testing here, was in preparation to add the Typhus Corrosion, I wanted to have like a bit of a really worn look, but it kind of ended up coming out like a camouflage. I really didn't mean for this to happen. It looks like I've airbrushed the brown over the top of that, but it is supposed to look like mud and wear and tear, but it just didn't come out how I wanted it to. Now this is the Typhus Corrosion, you can see right over the top. One of the worst things about the Typhus Corrosion is it takes bloody ages to dry, and if you touch it, it smudges and it gets everywhere. That's why I painted it over the entire thing and I let it dry overnight, just because I've had some experiences with this and it just takes forever to dry. But yeah, it's a really good paint. In general, it's very rich. You could use it for like this little bit of mud all over the place, and yeah, I'm happy with the end results. Now I've added this oil, Nuln oil, into the center and in the engine area, just to add more like depth to the model itself. Now I don't really like Nuln oil, using it too much, because it's very oily. It looks like oil. So you just got to be a little bit, sparing with this. Now this is a big thing here. Painting decals. I advise strongly, unless you can do it, I advise against it, because it really can make or break a model. If you're going for a hand-painted look, sure, that's the way to go. If you're making it look like the soldiers themselves painted it, sure. But the best way to do it, and I would redo this right now if I could, is use stencils, or use those little stick-on things that come with models. I'm not even sure what they're called. They're just little decal stickers that you put in water and then you put on, kind of like fake tattoos, but they're for models. Definitely use one or the other. Hand painting these, it's just a pain in the ass. It's not necessary. I also did it a bit late in the process. I should have done it before I weathered the thing. So if you are going to do it, make sure you've got a nice pristine tank. You chuck those decals on, and then you can add the weathering over the top of it. I got lucky, and it looks the way it is. And I got lucky. So here it is right here. You can see the stars, I kind of like went over the top of them to cover up any of the issues I had there. Now, when I mean painting by hand, you see in some old tanks they've got like markings or names. You can name the tank. Write that with the paintbrush, because that looks cool. But otherwise, use decals for those things. You can see the scale here is 28mm. It feels small. When I'm holding it, I kind of expected it to be bigger, but I've got my comparison here with the Panzer X. Now this is just kind of a made-up tank here. You can see they're more or less the same size. I think the Panzer's a little bit wider, but it's a lot wider. But you can see they are the same size. I think the Sherman's a bit longer. The Panzer's a bit wider, but you get the gist. You can swap the parts around, like I said before. You can put this turret here, and you've got a Panzer Sherman hybrid, and you can put this turret on here, and you've got a Panzer Sherman hybrid again. So very cool. I like the idea of swapping and interchanging parts, so you guys can really just have fun with the models. And that's really what it comes down to, you just enjoying what you're getting. Now this is available over on My Mini Factory, and I am selling it just because I need to make money, so I'm going to sell it over there. But if you want this, you can head over to Patreon, and you'll be getting it for an exclusive for this month only, And, you know, there's a whole bunch of other exclusives over there as well, and it will be cheaper over there, because I think it's $5 for the exclusive thing, and that you'll get all the previous exclusive models. But, you know, if you just want this model, you can head over to My Mini Factory. Yeah, that's where it'll be. And yeah, this has been a while since I've made a from start to finish model creation, and I actually had a lot of fun with this one. I am currently working on some troops to go with it, and they'll also be available sometime soon. I'm using the universal modeling system that I've kind of figured out with my Viking models. So enjoy, and hope you guys are doing well, and as always, stay awesome. See you guys.